So let's wind up a bit and go back in 2009 out of universe, and instead in universe between, Let's
Ben
Draft Fallen Man and 2,
Studio.
developed in this case by the Ben Studios, the makers mostly of Siphon Filter, and also more recently Days Gone. In fact, if I recall correctly, the two main writers are um, John Gavin and Jeff Ross. They've been working since the original Siphon Filter, to this day on the company. So there is that. Um,
Uh-huh.
I can tell you that this is a much of a different game compared to the Insomniac ones. For starters, it's gonna be a TPS rather than an FPS. Um, and you might not have noticed at the beginning, but like you mentioned in the past, this was done around the same time where extra features would have been added if you managed to connect the PSP with the PS3 by connecting similar games to each other. A bit kind of like with the GameCube and the GBA. And in this case, it unlocks your ability to use a DualShock controller um, and some extra goodies that I will show in an extra part. Um, the neat thing in all of this is that this works perfectly with the emulated version that I'm currently playing, the one on PS4. Ben Studios actually have been pretty proud of this. They even bothered to iron out a couple of bugs that were present, and have been advertising this. So they're being pretty good sports about it. And it got released relatively recently, a few months by the time ago by the time recording.
Oh,
Anyway, let's start from the beginning.
I had heard of Grayson, of course. Everyone had, leading up to
And
those
yes, the
days
good news
before
is
the
that
fall of the
all
London
returning
Tower.
characters from the
We all
previous
knew
game,
how it had
Fall of Man,
begun.
have their
The
voice
night of
actors
the 15th of
reprising
May,
the role.
1951.
so I guess our new
The night that
protagonist
James
is called
Grayson's
James
life changed
Grayson.
forever.
Voice by Robin Atkin Dawes, because like I said, that poor man has to carry this franchise on his shoulders.
I must say, Ben Studio, the sequel to Bubsy 3D is interesting. I see that this is what the Woolies were planning when they were opting to attack planet
But
Earth.
why is everyone human all of a sudden?
Well, to be fair,
Bad mutation. Anyway, like I also hinted, part of James' backstory, quote unquote, is in the comic line. But like I said, it doesn't really add anything other than he really loved his brother, which is the victim that he's meeting right now. So for intents and purpose of the game, you don't really need it.
I'm curious, is that the same comic line that also gives, like, developments between...
Yes, it's structured similar to the Youngblood comics, Jova. One half is dedicated to the story of Capelli, the other half to the story of James.
Ha! Okay, question. Do we at least get James's full development in this game with or without that
Like I
comic?
said, in the comic you don't really need it. All you need to do is that he had a terrible childhood, but had his brother at his side, and what happens at the beginning, it's something you see in the game here.
Mercy
He's
killing.
forced to terminate his brother because it has been turned.
Right, yeah, this is before the vaccine
But
was
this
made.
is important.
Grayson deserted his unit and went on a vendetta to destroy every
He
Chimera
basically
conversion
became like a
center
hinted
he could
BJ
find.
Blazkowicz.
He became a vigilante? Oh, Cartwright!
Yep. He was part of his platoon, so the two also know about each other.
So, I guess Cartwright will once again, in a sense, be our lovable ally.
Yes. Although, as you'll see in a second, because of these events, Grayson tends to have a bit of a very rough relationship with the army now.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
he's
being
been
a
convicted of
deserter.
desertion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in order to basically went rogue on his own, and because this is still not the point where the invasion is going completely through, they still have time for court-martialing, despite the fact that Grayson actually was helping.
why does this remind me of that Gears of War Judgment game?
Don't worry. Okay, there are a few similarities with some things, but I cannot say right now.
At least
Wait,
he won't...
he's in the prison, he's not in the Tower of London?
That's
Well,
because
Time of War
if I recall correctly, they didn't mention also in the tag we're more near the coast in the south. But Cartwright has someone to present him.
I said on your feet. Rats in here keep getting bigger and bigger.
It's all right, Major.
She's a Maquis. In case you don't know, special agents that are from France.
Boy, Britain and France working together. You know that's
What is
troubling times.
Yeah, you know these apocalyptic times.
I'm with you, Maquis.
Rain Bouchard, let me check who she's voiced by. Sally Safiotti. Is she French herself? Nope, New York.
Oh my
well, she's
God.
Hilda from Fire Emblem Three Houses, and she was also an Italian target in Hitman 2016.
Oh well.
I see that James grew that road beard.
All the way across the channel, did
Mostly because of being in prison.
you? For help.
Our mission is top secret. How did you know about it?
He's just that good.
We take out
Oh, he's voiced by Robin Eckendowes, of course. Wait a minute. Robin Eckendowes
Paris.
voicing a Brit
I
in
am
a
sure you know that
Sony
as well.
first-party production. Also, this was the backstory of the bad guy in Uncharted 3.
Conversion centers.
Thought the bad guy was the woman.
Well, you know, she had, like, her right-hand man who pretty much became the final boss because she fell into, like, quicksand or
Quicksand.
something.
Everything
Yep.
I know before I
Well,
If-
that's like saying that Odd Job was the real villain.
Well, to be fair-
Probably.
Well, to be fair, she is not a physical fighter, so obviously it would have to be him to be the final. boss
Anyway, the point is that the Maquis want to collaborate with the British forces to enlist Grayson in to do what he knows best, blowing shit up in France. But he's a bit stubborn, and you'll come to realize very soon the fact that, I'm sorry to say, despite having much more personality, a bit of a backstory, and more presence, he even talks to me level, Grayson is not a particularly likable character.
Look, I've seen this character archetype done a lot of times. The man who is hardened by war, or the ex-beat cop or detective who lost a family member, lost a sister, lost a brother, so he hates the world, but he's gotta do what's right essentially, and that
It's
will
more treated
eventually...
also as a one last job kind of thing.
Beautiful.
Evolving. My father has
And yeah, Bouchard has a scientist father, which is working in, currently in Europe, and is believing the Chimera are actually changing their tactic and wants to know more. And once again, the help of Grayson would be actually very accepted, considering its reputation.
Interesting. She mentions a serum. Is this a precursor to the vaccine that we'll have by Resistance?
No, but you'll
Free?
see actually what it does. Again, this game actually has consequences in the franchise on the long run, but you'll see exactly what happens by the end.
So I'm guessing this is happening around the same time Resistance 2 is happening.
Right, no,
We had
this is
no
happening
idea
right
who shot
after
him
the
in
events of
space.
Follow Man,
But he
so
agreed
currently
to
the British
work
believe
under the
Nathan Hale is
authority of
dead,
the Maquis.
and Hale is just
Integral
doing
part
the
of Operation
2-year
Overstrike.
stupid shit that happens in the novel in America.
Okay, then in that case, yeah, this is well before the vaccine was even a thought.
The British are actually going to assist the Maquis in a conjoint operation starting not necessarily on the Normandy coast, but kind of similar, then moving on to Belgium, Luxembourg, and then reaching Paris.
Interesting. This really feels like they're ramping up parallels to World War II, making this essentially...
Again, I kind of get the idea Ben Studios took a look at the setting and was like, let's try to make things a bit more, attached to the setting as well, just with the aliens.
Which is kind of like what Resistance 2 was doing before Resistance 3.
And yeah, even the briefing actually showcased the same thing that Follow Man did. This is more in tune with the first game in terms of presentation.
I will say
Same
that...
goes also for the look. It's there's not super gray, but you can still tell a bit of the saturation.
I will say that they seem to be playing more up the idea that this is what World War II would have been if the bad guys were aliens instead of Nazis, essentially.
Basically. Also, you might have noticed, but for being a PSP game, the initial presentation cutscene is relatively lengthy, When compared to stuff like, say, God of War, Chains of Olympus, this goes on for quite a bit in terms of presentation, so they put actually a lot of work into this.
Also, I'll give it credit, the cutscene is not as pixelated as PSP.
These are not technically not in-game. These are not technically FMVs, but, as close as it gets.
Oh, I know that.
You'll see just a second how it looks.
Coastal Defences, Rotterdam, Netherlands. Operation Overstrike is off to a piss-poor start. Our squadron's been ambushed by 3 massive gun towers and British soldiers are raining from the sky. Second squadron will be here soon. A week ago, Rotterdam was clear. Since then, the Chimera sealed off the entire Atlantic coastline. The bloody guerrillas were able to build all this in less than a week. What have they built in France and Germany, which they've occupied for over 2 years? Private James Grayson, Maquis mercenary, also is the end of August 1951.
You'll see in just a second how the pixelation actually is. The emulation does a decent enough job of scaling the texture, but unfortunately the frame rate stays capped at a maximum 30. Unfortunately, sometimes it still dips.
So anyway, what I meant to say was like, even for like FMVs on PSP, I definitely recall there being like a noticeable bout of compression and sometimes even pixelation, given how the PSP could be. Maybe it's, are you using an emulator here?
No, he's playing the official PS4 and PS5 release.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay then.
Again, like Pedro suggests, and also mentioned, the emulation, current emulation on PSPPP, whatever it's called, the PSP emulator for PC, unfortunately is not as, completely optimized as it would be, particularly for this game. So this is unfortunately for the time being a best option.
If you try to emulate it, apparently there's, according to what I've read into from people, apparently there's places that crash the game at certain spots in the campaign, so it's not really recommendable.
Anyway, since this is, a PSP game, a lot of concessions to be made, and this means also the Chimera look definitely more like people with a goofy mask on it, but never changes expression. Again, it's understandable. Also, let's talk about our weapons. Our starting weapon, the carbine, unfortunately, as you noticed, the kind has a very bad spread. Even if I actually adjust the aim. And as a secondary, it usually has the grenade. You'll also notice that my L-bar resembles the one of the first game, except instead of yellow, it's red. No idea why. You still deal with the same back, but despite being, divided in segments, you don't. Oh, actually, I think I'm gonna use these to read the weapon. There you go. The .303 Sturmgewehr, stone rifle, carabine, is a standard issue rifle of the Maquis resistance fighters. Press the R button to fire single rounds, hold the R button to fire multiple bursts. Use the carbine secondary fire mode the grenade launcher, press and hold the L button, then press the R button to launch a grenade with explosion impact. Allow for fall-off over long distance by raising the grenade reticule above your target. And the MAH-50 fragmentation grenade is a standard issue anti-personnel ammunition used by resistance groups across Europe. Press the L or R button to throw a grenade that explodes on impact. Allow for follow over long distances. Also, same as the grenade launcher. Your arsenal is not as, identical as the one in the other games. And you also have a main attack with the RM3 Knuckle Duster, which was introduced during the Great War for close quarter trench combat. Multifunctional melee weapon, the RM3 features a triangular stiletto blade with deep piercing power and double ground edges that provide superior sawing speed. The finger-shaped steel hand guards allows users to deliver fast, crushing blows with incapacitated enemy combatants. You don't really need, for the time being, melee attack. Go on, sorry.
I've noticed that the entries aren't as tongue-in-cheek as they were with the Insomniac ones.
Well, it's more of a case that they're more resembles the 102 in a sense of being sterile and, being a good description of it rather than just... You still have the proper intel. I'm actually pondering, how much I want to show and how much I will, even if I don't show it, I will recap actually what's being told, so don't worry about that, Jova.
So would you say that, despite this being like a whole new different company, would you say that this feels like it fits in with whatever identity Resistance had going for it?
I would say so. It really feels like it's, despite, the different presentation and everything, it still feels like it's set in the same universe. Even the score, actually, which I would happy to say, the score in this actually gives a damn. It's not maybe the most memorable thing. You probably will not save any particular tracks on an MP3 list, but it does the job of giving the war horror atmosphere, compared to the Insomniac games.
Streets are crawling.
I see. So if I understand correctly, both or however many handheld games there were have all been re-released on PS4 by this point?
Not all of them. Sony, while the conscious effort is being made, Sony is very slow with re-releasing part of their old catalog. There have been, some decent priorities, and to be fair, they also try to use this excuse to give a bit of a bit of an edge to underdog titles that normally not many people will talk about, like say Blade Dancer, for example. But they're mostly just first-party titles, and not all of the big ones have been released. For example, I talk about how Dexter was considered, apparently according to data, the highest-selling PSP title. That one hasn't been re-released yet. It's also mostly probably because the games are being experimented before actually, being properly released. And I can tell this is not even the first one where a couple of glitches get to be ironed out, at post-launch. Anyway, the BM001 Razor is a British engineered assault rifle based on a Chimera technology. Press the R button to fire a burst of highly accurate energy rounds, hold the R button to fire multiple bursts, press and hold the L button to begin charging in secondary fire mode, a homing energy blade that ricochets off surfaces and strikes multiple targets, while holding L button, a meter in the lower right corner of the screen displays the current charge level of a spinning blade. When the blade has been charged, press the R button to fire the blade that will seek targets in your targeting reticule. Since the charge of energy blade combines all the ammo in the active clip, charging when the clip is full maximizes the potential damage. So instead of a bullseye, you get this, which is a much more interesting thing. I kind of get the idea that with the technology and the the interface of a PSP, they were not able to replicate the homing target effect that normally the bullseye have. So instead, as a substitute, you get a traditional carabine, similar to the bullseye. It's more powerful, but spreads a bit more than the carabine, with energy blast. But as a trade-off, the secondary fire is that you can trade any kind of size of a clip that you have currently for essentially a powerful energy blade that travels, horizontally instead of being a grenade, and as an area of effect. It's very useful to get, out of tight situation. And again, it's inventive enough, so cool enough that too. Let me check in. Let me use this time to meantime to check who did the score. Gary Shyman. Let me see. It's the Bioshock composer there. Right, I forgot.
Nice. I definitely hear some Bioshock influence in there.
Also, the same composer of the Shadow Mordor and Shadow War duology that we recorded last year. That's also pretty cool, and more recently Forspoken.
Look at that, ties all together. So I forget if we talked about it before, but going off of an interview done with Game Rant, apparently...
Hold on, give me a second, Jova, because this cutscene is live. Important introduces a new character.
God, you're alive. Yeah, she's alive.
Roland Mallory, I think he's the leader of the Maquis, a stereotypical French jerk voiced by Nolan North.
Your army, the Maquis, who just got first squadron shot to hell.
Grayson, that's not fair.
Robinac and Dow's and Nolan North going at it with each other. Why am I not surprised?
Actually, you're gonna tell me Troy Baker and Laura Bailey are a couple in this game.
When did this game come out?
2009.
So it's only a year or so after Nolan North was voicing Engine. So he's used to doing accents that aren't his own.
So
well, remember, 2007 saw him voicing the medic in Team Fortress 2 with a German accent. And yeah, get used to Grayson, insulting people. In this case, calling French with the very stereotypical, appellative of frogs.
All right, let's go.
Thankfully, for the next couple of missions, stick with British people.
We located a downed VTOL in a courtyard.
And yeah, I can recognize that these guys voiced by Gideon Emery.
You have your field torch?
Come on, let's move.
And yeah, despite also the limited controls, I can tell you that you know you can. Band Studios went above and beyond to make sure that the you know using the D-pad and all the buttons that you have at disposal, both on either on the PSP or on the DualShock, you know, could work decently. So again, props to them for the commitment.
It's a funny thing, yeah, that joke.
Well, fuck.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, that joke we made in the Final Fantasy VII remake playthrough where we joked that since Gideon Emery played
Biggs.
Biggs in that game, you made the joke about how he
Cartwright, this is Grayson. We've got to take out those gun
in
towers.
14.
Second squadron is
Gideon Emery is British, I think. Or at least he was born in Britain.
I don't know. Well, remember, aside from voicing Valkyrie, he also voiced I forgot the name.
He was born in Windsor.
Well, again, he also voiced one of the supporting character while in Final Fantasy 14, while he still had the American voice cast.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, I think nowadays in the recent expansions, they're slightly more open to having Americans because the American got a role in one of the more recent ones, and they are recording in Los Angeles.
Well, yeah, it's if I recall correctly, also because they want to give the idea of characters from the so-called New World that are adding in Dawn Trail. Hello there.
Oh,
anyway,
he voiced Blofeld in GoldenEye Rogue Agent. Yes, Megan.
So does this mean at some point we're going to have Australians, kind of like what every Pulse people is Australian?
I don't know. Australia didn't have the best
new
luck
world
fighting
in Dawn Trail,
emus. Who knows how well they do with Chimera.
The new world in Dawn Trail is more meant to resemble America, as in pre-Columbian America.
Oh, so it's like
anyway, Cartwright is supposed to actually plant explosive, but can't get up. Hilarious.
Oh, before they can't get up.
didn't make it. So you stuck with me.
Well, in this case, it's not quite
Grayson,
bad.
thank God. There are explosives on board that beetle we can use to destroy those gun towers. Come down and help me reach them. Your exit is blocked. It's not one bloody thing, it's another.
Interesting choice of color for the subtitles, blue.
They do possess a border and a shadow, so they do stand out. Anyway, we're back having the FARI FR1, a scoped rifle designed for long-range combat. To go into scope mode, tap the up button. To cycle through zoom settings, tap the up button while in scope mode. Press and hold the L button to activate the rifle's secondary fire mode, electromagnetic pulse that slows down all low-mass targets, objects, or enemies. The pulse effect is automatic and will last as long as it energy. The meter in the lower right corner of the screen displays the currently available energy for the pulse effect. This energy will recharge slowly over time while the mode is not in use. So this all flowery item description to tell you that you can still slow down time with the secondary fire. It's not the fact that the sniper is holding breath. No. It's the fact that the FARI emits electromagnetic pulse that slows things around. Right. Anyway, this is now an escort mission. You have to make sure that Cartwright doesn't get injured too much. And I can tell you, however, that at least so far, the escort missions are not too bad. Sure, as you can see, your allies do possess an L-bar at this point, but they seem to be resilient enough to not immediately get insta-killed, by the enemy. So at the very least, they can actually handle for themselves and not, die in a dickish way.
Take cover.
I'm pretty sure the PSP could do FPSs. The DS could do FPSs.
I don't. Well, maybe it was an artistic choice. I have to yet play the Killzone game that was developed for the PSP by Guerrilla. Killzone Liberation. So I don't know if that one is a FPS or not. There you go. And I also haven't played yet the Siphon Filter franchise, so I don't even know at any the PSP entries, do play like a TPS or an FPS.
Make yourself useful, Grayson.
Can't you run any
Definitely the most engaged. This is definitely the most engaging music we've gotten out of this franchise so far.
And again, you also get, you know, a much more banter during gameplay, even more so than in Resistance 2. Again, your character. Sure, like I said, unfortunately, Grayson is not he's not very likable as a character, but at least he's a character. He talks, he interacts with people around him. You know,
I'm fine with Grayson.
It does feel like a breath. Again, you'll only see the beginning, Joe. But trust me. But at least it's a breath of fresh air compared to how the Nathan Hale and Capelli, you know, did not spoke that much during the Insomniac games.
And you were referencing the music. Well, okay, I've only played Infinite, but I guess this is typically how Gary Shyman's, at least his orchestral music, normally sound.
Well, you again, I don't think you remember that, but it also composed, like I said, for the Middle Earth duology that we commented last year. And like I said, when it came to orchestral, he came pretty close to having the score resemble Howard Shore's one from the movies. So
I think it was more so in the second game.
Regardless, the point is that for the most part, he knows what he's doing. I also love how Cartwright never loses composure. He's like, oh yes, you know, Grayson, jolly old sir, let's move on.
Honestly, it helps.
By Jove, sir, I think these aliens might be firing in our general direction.
It does help overall with the interaction between the two, so it doesn't just amount to them fighting.
After all, Graves, don't you know, it's a real man's word in the new British Army.
Of course.
So anyway, going back to what I was talking about earlier, I am whether or not we've mentioned it in previous commentaries. In June 2021, game developer and former IGN PlayStation editor Colin Moriarty did reveal that the idea of a sequel had been pitched to Sony, but at the time was rejected due to the number of post-apocalyptic games in development, which included Last of Us and Days Gone, essentially. So I have to wonder, if things eventually get to a point where there's not as much of a glut of these post-apocalyptic games, if maybe then they'll consider doing Resistance 4?
Well, that's the thing. Again, because of the data theft that happened recently to Insomniac, we know what their plan is right now until, at the very least, until the end of the decade, Jova, and I can tell you that at no point Resistance is mentioned.
Oh, that's why I'm simply speculating on the future, and if Sony really want a new Resistance game, they'll either go to Insomniac and say, hey, you remember that time you made us those Resistance games? More, please. Or they'll give it to another studio, since Sony technically do have say what to do with Resistance. That's how we got the spin-offs. Speaking of which, so Retribution, I guess, got added digitally to PS4, but not so much Burning Skies, I presume?
That's a PS Vita games. Those have not, unless they got an actual properly, you know, HD remaster like Gravity Rush, you know, or very other specific minor cases like Escape Plan. We're out of luck for the time being. Yeah. Anyway, Titan, and they surprisingly look even more naked than before. Ew.
Maybe that's
it's a PSP. They couldn't render the clothes.
For this, well, they did not add clothes. They're supposed to be texture scaling, having scales like, you know, like reptiles supposedly. It's just that here it looks like a big naked man, just without, you know, the yeah.
Someone calls Solid Snake. I found his missing ass.
Anyway, yeah, the crease is actually present. For these first 5 things are actually, you know, better. Things eased up for you because Cartwright is actually gonna, you know, tease there you go, he teases the Titan until, so you can shoot him from behind. You will not be as lucky in future encounters.
Well, I believe that puts that matter to bed.
Status report, Sergeant. We've located a gun tower entrance, but the sewers are heavily defended.
Oh no.
It's suicide to go that way.
Suicide mission? That's your speciality, Grayson? Or is it forte now? Either way, I get to blow something up.
Private, lead Grayson through the sewers. Sergeant, come with me.
Use me, shit.
Oh, I get the rookie.
And yes, second level is a sewer level.
Wow, that
Your
didn't take
favorite.
long.
All over Rotterdam.
I guess, as with far side, I guess we can get away with that,
Not only
now.
between the squadrons, but between ground forces and British command.
Again,
back in
I'll give
Dover
it
as well.
credit. I've got
For
a
the first
good
hours,
first impression
military discipline was
overall. It
reduced to a struggle
seems like
for
it has an
survival.
interesting story, has a potentially interesting protagonist, good character interactions, and yeah, this.
Next mission briefing.
As sad as it is, this is already probably one
Cartwright
of the
never
better
forgave me for
soundtracks.
Cartwright never forgave me for deserting my post. It was his testimony that led to my conviction and death sentence. He probably even volunteered to be on the firing squad. Yet here we are, on the shores of Rotterdam, behind enemy lines, trying to stop the Chimera guns from destroying 2nd Squadron. You know it's a cold day in hell when Cartwright turns to me for help. He's putting our personal differences aside because Parker's life depends on our destroying those guns.
Let me guess, it'll turn out that
If
that's
you
not...
forgot, Parker is the girl that Hale rescued from the conversion center in the first game.
Right. Let me guess, it's gonna turn out that that's not the case. Cartwright never wanted him dead, essentially.
It's more of a case that Grayson is very bitter towards the whole situation, even if the others just want to try to collaborate. Oh boy, check this out.
Oh, really?
Chock full of
Yep.
hybrids, drones, and leapers. I've never seen so many Chimera, Lieutenant.
Because it's time to introduce a new enemy type.
Private Grayson now. That's a load of guff, sir. Watch out for the bloody boilers. They get too close and their heads explode.
Boilers? I don't follow.
Never seen them, huh? They're Chimera, all right, but their plumbing's gone, like a menial, except under
Eh?
their knickers. These boilers are gas, not that different from the wife back home. Ugly as shite, and all you hear is constant whining. And if you ignore them...
Yeah, this is the first major occasion of
1950!
Oh,
a bit of casual sexism in the game.
so the boilers are exclusively women turned into Chimera.
And also, I would like to mention, I'm gonna try. This is also weird. Okay, for strictly gameplay purposes, boilers are psychic. They get close to you and then essentially blow up. So they're effectively only weak with a headshot. So the game is literally introducing an enemy that makes you focus entirely on getting good at headshots. So I appreciate also the effort, technically.
The real problem there is that, again, for the same reason that we've talked about before, like, since this is a post-apocalyptic world, it makes little sense for these kinds of... Okay, you said it was the 1950s, right, still, right?
Yes.
Okay, I guess, technically, Okay, let me put it this way. If they had at least put in some kind of disclaimer at the beginning of the game, explaining this stuff that we don't necessarily know what the characters say, then nobody would.
Unfortunately, this was a 2009 game, so no, that's not what's gonna happen.
Okay, to be fair...
Again, it's more, mind you, it's more of a case of, oh, that's what the character in the 50s would have said and anything, but it feels more superfluous than anything. The game literally stops for a moment and turns to the camera and says, "Woman, am I right?"
Okay. Actually analyzing the dialogue, it seems like what they're implying is that boilers are exclusively women turned into Chimera.
Yeah, which, like he said, which was about to... Well, actually, I will say after this cutscene.
This was filled with water when we came through. Shite. Can't reach the exit. Wait, there's a flood control valve. I'll get it.
It's never easy.
Be careful. Watch out!
Leapers. You're gonna learn quickly. Leapers are possibly the demonic spiders of this game. Compared to the previous games, they are much more bastard and they tend to be much more agile, meaning that you're gonna waste bullets trying to hit these fuckers. Not even when you get the shotguns, you're gonna be that much safe. So watch out. And yeah, you have to actually deal with them with QTEs. Again, you may notice before, the game has some degree of QTEs, but very simple, like move the objects away, for example, Well, unfortunately, like in the main games, the grab attack actually depletes an entire segment of your health bar, even on easy mode. For the record, I'm playing on normal, as you saw from the beginning. But again, it becomes very tedious if you find a large group of them. They really are, enemies that focus your attention immediately. Anyway, to talk about the boilers a bit, they introduced this bit of a curveball because for the entire Insomniac franchise, they made a point to actually mention that the Chimera are supposed to be genderless, as in they take humans, recombine them into, you know, the typical hive mind type of foot soldier or monster that they have, regardless of, you know, who they were before, and that's part of the cruelty of them, because they literally, you know, destroy the identity of humans. But now you're telling me that now they create a specific enemy type based on human females?
Okay. Okay.
It just feels weird, and like I said, the game is going somewhere with this. But for the time being, also for the PSP, it is actually good looking water. Damn. It also introduces swimming controls, including underwater swimming controls. They actually work relatively fine, you know. So that's pretty neat, actually. You do have an air meter, but thankfully you don't drown instantly. Thankfully, you know, Grayson has packed a decent set of lungs. So, the aim detection on trying to climb on a surface after you get on the water is a bit, you know, finicky, but, you know, you get used to that. Alright, if I recall correctly, I'm almost at the end. Go on, Joe, sorry.
I'm really surprised it took until the PSP game for us to get swimming controls, and swimming controls that still didn't really come to the main games.
Well, they were present in 2, Joe, but it's just that the swimming was not implemented that much because of the insta-kill enemies.
And then, well, okay, I guess to be fair, in 3 we were using a boat, but, you know.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
yeah, no.
Sorry, go on.
Going back to the whole female aliens thing, I think it's more a case of, like, different reactions. It's kind of like what some Resident Evil games do, where due to the certain gender of a person, the virus or whatnot works on them differently. We saw this in stuff like, well, shoot, both of the Resident Evil Revelations games and whatnot, so I'm not too weirded out by that. The whole, oh, they're just like Wise thing, you know, tacky joke, but, you know, it's about the explosive heads and all that. It's like, I mean, I guess No, it's still technically sexist, but it's thankfully not like Gears of War Judgment, which, mind you, that sexism was...
Leave the strategy with men with bars.
It was like, leave the kitchen work to the women, which, again, keep in mind...
He doesn't phrase it like that. It's just that, again, the way that, oh, Colonel, what about the light mass missile? Colonel, leave strategy to men with bars, and it's just like, wow, he literally just basically said, shut up, woman, the men are talking.
Which, again, was out of nowhere, because well before, chronologically speaking, and also production-wise, well before Judgment, we have seen plenty of women in probably higher command than that random judge guy anyway.
It's a typical, you know... It's the typical unwritten rule where when in this kind of post-apocalyptic setting, people don't even have, you know, something already as bad as sexism becomes a luxury because every life counts. I
will say that, you know, here it works a bit better since the guy wasn't even saying that women are useless on the field. It was just a wives' common thing, like, you know, like an ex-wife. Whereas in Gears of War,
I can tell you, Vojova, that the boilers are exactly what they described as in female Chimera, which, like I said, kind of goes a bit, you know, off with what the franchise had established at this point. Mind you, like I said, I don't mind the introduction of a new enemy type, especially one that requires this kind of gimmick. It's just kind of odd the direction they wanted to take it.
You mentioned it being
also,
a plot point.
You notice that while the bodies appears soon after, you might have noticed that the Chimeras do have a unique animation if they die actually like near a border, actually, on actual edge. Again, for the PSP, they kind of put a lot of effort for this.
If I recall correctly,
the games made internally an actual PlayStation-owned studio. These kind of things tend to happen more often than ones that aren't. It's like that with everything. It's like that with the DS. It's like that with the 3DS and even the Vita to an extent.
Remind me, when did Ben... Oh wait, never mind. Okay, so they became a first-party developer for PlayStation Studios since 2000.
Yeah, well, pretty much since the PlayStation days drove up because they got contracted to create the Siphon Filter IP.
They
basically.
were not.
Needed it after Ballsy 3D.
Either that, or they proposed themselves that to Sony. You know.
According to
So-
Wikipedia, they were officially owned by Sony as Ben Studios starting in 2000, which means no, Sony did not own them when they made Bubsy 3D, which...
I still wonder what the thought process was like. This studio that is, very made of rookies, did this absolutely atrocious game that, when compared instead to, what the games that Universal has subcontracted Insomniac Naughty Dog to do for our console, looks and plays like trash. Let's hire them.
And amazingly, it worked!
Like, what happened? Did a time traveler make sure that it
Well-
happened or something?
I wonder.
Well, hang on then. Well, here's the thing. I won't speak too ill of the dead in this case, but okay, I don't want to speak ill of the dead at all. But Michael Berlin, who was the pretty much the head of Bubsy, he wasn't very good at making things. I mean, he was a contributor / producer for the first one, but for the most part, his track record was not great.
Also, you might have noticed that every time a set of boilers will be present on screen, as in they're about to actually get close to you, the game will actually have a musical stinger. Not necessarily a jump scare, but fuck, still stinger, the kind of beat, which actually helps you understand which kind of enemies are arriving compared to the normal Chimera grunts.
You mentioned this being a bit of a plot point. I wonder if it ties into the serum plot point, or how they've noticed that
Again,
the
you
Chimera
see, we
changing
literally just
tactics.
started. This is not, again, compared to the other games, I argue this game is actually also slightly longer than them.
Interesting.
Mostly because, again, probably they had to work with, on a smaller, type of console, meaning that when defining the assets, they could just, move the things around, and rearrange them so they could create, more content for it. But still, I'm actually impressed. Keep in mind, because I haven't talked that much about it, if I remember correctly. I did play a lot of the PSP, as in titles developed for it. Mostly admittedly third-party titles, but I did play some first-party stuff, like the Ratchet & Clank games, or the God of War titles, for example. But I did not play this, but I have to admit that it's kind of impressive, the amount of work that they did. So...
I can see, okay, ever since Bubsy 3D, like, whatever the reason that they got a second chance, I'll give Ben Studio this. They definitely seem to want to do everything in their power to show, no, Bubsy 3D is not our norm. We can actually do great and better things. So I assume this is them pretty much sticking with that mentality.
Trash.
Considering Jack and Daxter Lost Frontier also came to the PS4 and PS5, I'm wondering if Ratchet and Clank Assassin Matters is probably also on the list.
Either that, again, when it comes to the first-party titles that did not ever get a re-release, because, the God of War PSP titles did got a release on the PS3, so let's assume for a second that that fabled new collection they're making is still happening, and, so those do not have to count for the time being.
Also, props... sorry.
The titles that at the moment probably have the more famous titles that probably are not still yet there and probably need a re-release right now, like I said, are Daxter, Secret Agent Clank, and Size Matters, like Pedro said.
Sorry. Also, props for irony. Ben Studio, after making, Retribution, would apparently be part of the contributing factor that made Sony decide against Resistance 4 because they made Days Gone, which, again, was part of Sony fearing that Resistance 4 would have put in one too many.
They got screwed over in their own ways, unfortunately, with that one. But it's a story for another time.
Mm-hmm.
See ya.
See ya for the next part.
Ta-ta.